I call to order the village board meeting at the Lisbon Village Hall on Wednesday, March 13th, 2024 at 6:31 p.m. Roll call, please.
President Osterman,
Here.
trustee Plotecker. Here. Trustee Moonen is going to be a bit delayed. Trustee Beal. Here. Trustee Quinn. Here. Administrator Nicholas. Here. Treasurer Gerard. Here. And Attorney Macy
Present.
and Clerk Capazo Ketch to record the minutes.
I will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, item 3 is comments from citizens present. This will be the time anyone in the audience has a chance to speak tonight. If you want, step up to the microphone, state your name and address, please. How you doing, Ed?
I'm Edward Brocker. My address is West 220, North 8143, Town Line Road. I've been a citizen of the town and now village for a little over 50 years. And I'm also a fire and police commissioner, now the fire commissioner for the town. I just want to comment on the sewer thing on the agenda, 9B, I believe. And what I really just want to tell you guys is that, you know, we've been down this road. I get it. Costs are awful sometimes. And that someone flushes a roll of coins down the toilet and there goes the grinder pump. And then we all have to bear the cost of it. But I'd also like to recall when this first was created back in 1989, the county was finding that septic systems were not ideal. We all know that as you have subdivisions, it just isn't a great way to deal with sewage, with pollution and stuff. So the sanitary district was created and the mandate was to get sewer in and get the septic tanks out. You know, we thought it was great. Our septic tank, you'd have to pump it all the time and sometimes it would back up. Okay, so they figured out that the way to do this is we can't just have the lateral go every place in Lisbon. It's kind of agricultural. So it was, some of these places have to have a grinder station. And so that's how we're going to do that. All right, well, whatever you have to do, I wouldn't know how many pumping stations you need by this school or by this factory or whatever, or this subdivision. And so that's what has to be done. And we all share in the cost of that as citizens. Then in 1992, the town made it clear that we need this done right and these things have to be maintained. So from now on, the town is responsible for the maintenance of these grinder pumps so that they're done right. Now we can go to 2019 where, and I realize there's probably costs and there were some losses at the time because of some grinder pumps, not mine, thank goodness, that had some issues. And so the town was looking, or the sanitary district was looking to push that cost back on the homeowners. And a lot of us with grinder stations say, hey, that's not fair. I mean, we don't really want this thing, but it's how you decided that we needed to have a sanitary district. We're okay with that. I don't have any kids in school, but I graduated from Hamilton. And my daughter, my lovely daughter, the attorney, also graduated from Hamilton School. In a couple of years, little Dylan, my grandson's going to go into the schools. All through that time, I know how sharing in the cost of that. Well, in 2019, we went back and forth on this a little, and then the town sort of said, well, okay, we've got to get through some of these. We're not sure how all this water is getting in. Besides, the engineering department, I mean, the engineering company didn't seem to really have a lot of answers either. So then we decided that, okay, it was decided that we are going to bear the cost, but we'll have to get this figured out someday. And so today I come home and here's a proposal contract from Joe DeBellick saying for $300, we'll come and inspect your grinder pump and we'll, if it needs any repairs, we'll do that at our current rates. So I thought, well, why would that be? It was only a few months ago that the town, and God, Roy's brother now works for the town. How cool is that? So we have somebody working for the village that even knows about these things, and so now they're doing it. Now, what's this from Joe DeBellick? I don't even get it. So I look at my email, and now I got an email from Sally saying, guess what? This has come up again, and they're gonna try to put it through with a code tonight. And I don't doubt that the town or that now the village has every right to do that. You guys as a body can take action on this proposed code and put it in place. The problem that I had with it is like, I didn't know that was happening this quick. Sure, I should probably always be checking that, but believe me, even as a fire commissioner, I'm not always up on everything that happens in the town. And there may be a meeting. Now, you think something is important to this and with as much impact on possibly on me, we know ahead of time. So all I'm saying is, why don't you give us a little time? I'd like to at least talk to my fellow grinder pump owners and say, hey, now what does this mean? If the grinder pump fails, should we just put in a septic tank again? Would that be okay? Would that meet code? I don't really know what our options are. Probably not. But that's unfortunate because we didn't vote for the grinder pump. We voted for the way that the town figured out was the way we needed to do this in as an entity, as a group, as a community, we decided. So it seems now that we hurry and we do this quick, that just, I think it's certainly legal. I'm just not sure it's honorable. I mean, treat me with honor. I try to treat you with honor. I served this town, this village also, and have for many years. And I'm all for it. But I'd like to know, well, then, other grinder pump owners, should we hire an attorney? As we have potential harm here. If the village is going to harm us, are we in a position where we need to join together to try to rectify that? Or is there somewhere in between? I mean, is there some way to say, okay, well, here's the deal, man. If you put a load of rocks down the toilet, that's your baby. But I don't know. I mean, anyway, sorry. I don't mean, I'm not trying to harp at you guys or anything. I'm just trying to, as one of your fellow citizens that tries to do the best I can for this entity, this community we live in. I'm saying, really? This is the way? Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Sally Reamer. It's Reamer. And I'm at N75W22470 Chestnut Hill Road. And I am here to echo some of the things Ed said. I, like Ed, was surprised to find in my mail today a proposal from Joe DeBellick for the maintenance, for the inspection of my grinder pump. I called Joe DeBellick and I said, what's going on? This is a cost that has been picked up by Lisbon since the pump was installed when the house was built. DeBellick told me that the town had not renewed the contract and was returning the cost to the homeowners. I then came up here to Village Hall, and I talked with Kathy, and nothing I have to say is negative about Kathy. She was very pleasant and professional during our conversation. However, she was rather vague on how these costs were going to be covered. She said that if I wanted to have the inspection, I could go ahead and sign the contract and have it, but then that's at my cost. So then I said, well, what about repair costs? I said, what if my grinder pump breaks? And she informed me I can call anybody I want to get it fixed. Now, those of us that have pumps, and Lance and Dennis can attest to this, and I'm sure Ed, you can't find just anybody to fix a pump. But anyway, I'm supposed to go find somebody to fix my pump. And I said, well, then who pays for it? And she said, well, today, if you bring that bill up to town Village Hall, that's hard to get used to. The village will pay for it. And I said, well, what about tomorrow? And she said, I don't know about that. There has been no direct contact with the grinder pump homeowners to let us know that anything is changing and that the village is once again trying to put these costs on us. I spent quite a bit of time online today going through thousands of minutes and readings, and I couldn't find anything that said this was going to happen. I'm sure it's out there, but it's buried in some sewer code that I'm not aware of. We fought this battle a few years back, with the exception of Paula and some of the newer administrators. You weren't here, but I'm sure the rest of you remember it. And Paula, if you'd like me to sit down with you and take you through it, I'd be happy to do that. After many discussions and meeting with the homeowners, the board voted that these costs should remain with Lisbon. As you consider this new sewer code, I ask you to remember those discussions. Remember the original contract the town, which is now the village, signed. Remember who decided to use grinder pumps. It wasn't the homeowners. Remember why it was chosen at the time, to save the town money. Remember, it is no fun to have a grinder pump as a homeowner. This appears to be another attempt to slip this code without being direct and forthcoming with the homeowners, just like it was the last time. If you decide to continue down this path, and I sincerely hope you don't, I ask that you are more forthcoming with the homeowners with grinder pumps and call out the change to the current policy with them. Let them know what you are doing instead of burying it in some code so they have a chance to respond once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Evening, everybody. My name is Dennis Petke, Pettke, W224 in 7581 Wooded Hills Drive. I didn't find out about this except for a few hours ago. I think it's very sad. It seems like we just went through this and then the town turned into a village. And now all of a sudden this has raised its ugly head again. Upon a corporation, nothing was to be changed except to apparently us sanitary district people. I was an original member of the sanitary district. I solicited signatures from various people to establish this. And since I'm one of the grinder pump people, I was not asked if the grinder pump would be suitable for me. Matter of fact, I wanted the main to be put in back of my house so gravity could do its work. They said that based on their explanations that it would benefit the town at the time for all of us on that side of Wooded Hills to have a grinder pump, which they would maintain. I agreed. And now I see this come raising its head again. Well, if we move into the fact that I'm now going to be responsible for my grinder pump, and as I look at it, my sanitation, I want the same opportunities everybody else in the village of Lisbon. I want a sewer in back of my house. I don't care what it costs. Apparently every 3 years, I'm gonna be brought in here, asking, wondering what's going on. And more importantly, especially with the incorporation, it just seems like everything is hidden. It's like this is a federal government here and we're pork billing everything under an assumed name or an assumed title. I wish you would consider what you're doing to us people who have been in the town of Lisbon for over 40 years. And what we put in here and raised our children. And now all of a sudden, this is how we're treated. I wish I would have had more time. I would have brought in the original contracts to once again show you, and I can't remember who one of the people I worked with. I don't see him here. Maybe he's retired. I think his name was Dennis. That's how I can remember. But I understood a lot of the concerns that they had, especially with the economics of installing this main line and with the DNR recommendation. So please consider what you're doing to us, people that played with you, who abided by your wishes, and now you're turning on us and biting us square someplace. And I just think it's totally wrong. And I would like more information and more consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Does anyone else wish to speak? This is the only time the public will have a chance to speak tonight on the agenda. I just want to be clear so everybody understands. After that, the meeting comes up to the board. So if anybody has anything they want to add, right now is the time. Okay. Item 4 is the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered in one motion unless a village board member requested an item be removed for separate consideration. We have the February 14th, 2024 village board minutes. We have appointing Robert McDonald to fill the vacancy on the Plan Commission for term ending 5/15/2025. We have appointing Elizabeth Burkowski and Dennis McCulkey as election inspectors for 2024-2025 term, and resolution 2024-02 to reimburse expenditures from proceeds of borrowing for capital projects. Does anyone have any questions, or is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
Second. Linda, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item 5, we have accounts payable. First one is authorizing the payment of the Falls Auto Parts bill dated 2/29 for $319.25 and 3/13 for $118.36. Any questions, or is there a motion on that item?
I make a motion, we, the Falls Auto Parts bill dated 2/29 for $319.25 and 3/13 for $118.36.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Paula, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Item B, authorizing the payment of the remaining bills dated 2/29 for $220,346.45 and 3/13 for $118,689.04.
Top 5 expenditures, 87,125.06 for US Port, 71,841.50. The Waukesha County Treasurer, $16,851.46 for Reliant Fire apparatus, $6,580.20 to administer law and litigation, $5,117.89 to Lisbon Village. Also, $54,435.44 to Bobcat Plus, $19,664.07 to Premier Buildings Inspectors, $10,064.80 to Waukesha County Treasurer, $9,530.43 to the Energies, and $5,311.94 for both. I ask for your approval.
All right, any questions or comments on the check register, or is there a motion on this?
I make a motion, we accept the amounts totaling 220,346 and 118,689.04.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Becky, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item C, authorizing the payment of the utility district bills dated 3/6 for $25,785.38.
We have, council engineering for $7,870, municipal law and litigation for $60. Tax management and financial horizons for $957.19. Village of Sussex for $16,539.43. The energies for $358.76. Ask for your approval.
Questions or comments on those? Or is there a motion?
I make a motion that we pay utility district bills dated 3/6 for $25,785.38.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And Becky, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item 6 is announcements and correspondence. We have the Public Works and Utility Committee meeting on Wednesday, March 20th at 5 PM at the Village Hall. We have the Easter Egg Extravaganza Saturday, the 23rd, from 12:30 to 2 PM at the Lisbon Community Park. We have public hearings and a Plan Commission meeting on Wednesday, the 27th at 6:30 PM at the Richard Young Fire Station. We have the spring election and presidential preference vote on Tuesday, April 2nd from 7 AM to 8 PM. We have the Parks Committee meeting on Wednesday, April 10th at 5 PM at the Village Hall. And the next Village Board meeting is on April 10th at 6:30 PM at the Village Hall. Does anyone else have any other announcements or correspondence to note? Item 7, Administrator Report.
So I want to let you know that the ambulance, our second ambulance has been delayed to the middle of March for delivery. We are in the process of reviewing our job descriptions for all the rest of the positions in the town or the village. We've had only done the director's position in the past. So we've got all the rest of them came in and we're working on that. One full-time fire person has stepped down to part-time. He's been hired elsewhere. We're working on performances, gathering performances for the community festival. Open bids for road projects, and that letter will be sent to Public Works and Utility Committee, the Village Board. We'll see it in April. The notice of offender was sent to residents in the area by the county. The water request information was sent to the city of Milwaukee and Outline. That's all.
Any questions for Kathy?
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, item 8, unfinished business. A, discussion necessary action regarding ordinance 2024-04, repealing and recreating chapter 9 concerning residency restriction for sex offenders.
So we brought this up at the last meeting. Some questions were had and I had asked to have the attorney present to answer some of those concerns. Would you like to raise them to the?
Well, I have a memo with the questions and the answers for discussion purposes, if that meets. It's just a short memo that I put together with my notes. And so it's very simple. It's very straightforward. And I just thought it might be because there's an alternate language and I thought I'd show that to you in writing. So it starts with the question that I was asked. The concerns come from removal of the domicile portion, and if we are 1,500 or 1,000 foot restrictions, section 903 starts off stating 1,500 feet, but then on 903D states 1,000. So that was the questions that I was asked, and that's what we're going to address. The original domicile restriction, as we have pointed out several times since the Cuck case in the village of Heartland, stated that imposing additional burdens on sex offenders that did not exist at the time of their offenses was a violation of the ex post facto clause of the U.S. Constitution. Our concern is that the existence of the original domicile restriction could lead to court finding the ordinance is unconstitutional. The existence of this provision subjects the village to a risk that the court could strike down the entire ordinance. As such, we recommended the provision be removed in its entirety. Let me stop there just to refresh everybody's recollection. This ordinance was set to us to make sure it was current because every time there's a federal case that comes down, the court gives us further guidance as to what can and cannot be in the sex offender ordinance. One of the last revisions, and I believe you already had it, was having an appeal process. So someone could come in and ask for a waiver or modification. It was very important. But this domicile one also came up and they basically said you can't enforce it. Now, I ask all of you to check the language because there is an alternative, and I originally put the alternative in that some of our communities have put in. Some have stricken it totally on fear that the whole ordinance could get thrown out, and others have put this alternate language in. And that's really the purpose for the memo, is because I wanted a chance for you to read the alternate language, which is in the bottom of page 1, top of page 2.
This was gonna be my question, what you put in there. We could do that.
You can do what I said, yes. And that's just a policy decision. There's a fear, and that's what we've warned all of our clients, that some judge, because as you know, the judges don't like these ordinances at all. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. And so every time there's a case that comes down, and there are national law firms that pick up on these cases and make a lot of money on these cases, if your ordinance isn't up to date. So that's why every time the court comes down with further guidance as to what they believe should or should not be in there, we send out notice to all of our 60 municipalities telling them it's time to check the ordinance. And I believe it was your administrator who said it's time to check this ordinance. And so it's the first time we've checked it since we've been the village attorneys. So, but legally, you can put that language in. There's just that additional risk, and that's the only thing. So that's your policy decision on that one. I can quickly do the other one. It's very simple. You're absolutely correct. It says 1,501 and 1,000 another, and there's nothing illegal about doing that. And we assumed when we reviewed the ordinance that that was a policy that had been made by your predecessors, and so we didn't change it. And you certainly have the right to change it. And we strongly recommended in every letter that we've sent on these that you need to review your maps. This was 2 or 3 cases ago where the judges said, sure, you can have restrictions, but you have to have reasonable restrictions. And we're not going to tell you how many feet is the right number of feet. We're going to tell you when we look at your ordinance, we're going to look at how many houses are available to be purchased and used by these offenders. And are those houses, are there enough houses? And they don't tell us how much is enough. Are those of all different economic areas? You can't have all your $1 million houses, the only ones that are available. So that the maps have to be drawn at the 500,000, 1,500 feet. And then you look to what availability of potential homes would be for purchase. And so that analysis hasn't been done, but I hate to sound like I'm copping out on the 1,000 or 1,500, but I didn't comment on it because it was there previously and it legally can be there. And so I didn't comment.
So we need to have our maps reviewed.
Absolutely should have your maps reviewed at some point to decide whether the 1,000, 1,500 is appropriate and defensible.
Everybody goes getting the maps reviewed by legal.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, that's an easy one. So then the original domicile, so we could potentially keep it, but we'd have to put in there that it was after. such
The
and such
offenses
date.
had to have occurred after. If you adopt it tonight, we would fill in tonight or tomorrow's date, depending on when she posted.
So we had been through this once before and we knew there was always a chance that we could be found, they could be challenged in court. And they could still be if we keep this in there, but this would also put more restrictions.
Right.
That are, at this time seem legal.
Yes, sir.
So it's a matter of, do we want to keep does everybody understand what the original domicile is?
Mhm.
Any questions on it?
So are you saying, I'm sorry, are you saying that we should not have a footage? I'm a little confused.
A footage?
Yeah.
No, you have to be able to defend whatever
Correct.
footage you put in. So you can have a footage. In some communities, 500 feet is the only thing that might be reasonable. I have one community, you can guess which one it is. If you're adjacent to the lake, then they feel that there's a risk. If you're not adjacent to the lake, they don't feel there's as much risk. That was the analysis they made.
Okay.
So that's one of the communities that's totally surrounded, the houses totally surround. So you just have to look at the map and we'll bring the map back, or your
Okay.
administrator will bring the map back. They have to create the map and then we have to look at the map and the engineer, we have a map. Okay, so
Perfect.
we would just look at it to do the analysis on the GIS, hopefully as to which, what the economic classes would, be available to be purchased under those and things like that. Just certain, but the court's never told us, it's a little bit like, pornography. We know it when we see it. We know when you're being too restrictive or not. And we'll all have sort of that gut reaction when we look at it after we do the analysis.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So you
Right.
can have a restriction. We just don't know whether the 1,000 and the 1,500 may be perfectly defendable. I just don't know that. That
But we
makes
should
sense?
only have one.
No, they're two different, they're
Okay.
analyzing two different things. There's
Okay.
no, I gotta tell you, almost every community I've ever worked has one.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not familiar with the analysis of why it's a typo or whether it was deliberate. I don't know, but it's not illegal, so I didn't raise it. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yes. Mhm.
So the policy decision is whether you're reminded to adopt it tonight, and if so, whether you want the domicile in there.
The 1,000 foot was in there because of the position of some homes that were rentable in relation to a school that was.
So it was deliberate.
Yeah, because it already existed and there was some reasons behind it, which I don't remember what it was, but it was advised by council at the time that that one should be 1,000 feet.
And that's,
I do remember that.
I didn't.
It was on the east side of the village.
are there any other questions? I just thought a quick, simple memo might be helpful.
So the original domicile one, that's when we have to make a decision on.
Yes.
Want to try and keep it, but update it to be legal now, or more legal again, because
Yep.
due to the Heartland case, or do you want to strike it?
I'd prefer to update it.
Linda,
I do too.
Becky,
Yes.
we're all in 100% agreement.
So, how do you feel about passing this with the updated original domicile restriction plan?
Pass it again with a new map. So we'd be voting to pass it tonight to get the data in there essentially, and then we would be, after that, we'd have to review the maps and potentially bring it back again. So we might have to pass it again, but at least we get the date set right now.
Yeah, yes.
Somebody want to put that in a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the sex offender ordinance revisions as suggested with the original domicile restriction additions.
Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Linda. Any discussion? John, that covered everything?
Yes, as long as, and if staff has any question on how to read, stick it back in. It's pretty clear where it goes in 9.07, but they'll get a hold of me if they have any questions. But
Okay.
no, the motion is fine. The motion is clear.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 4-0. All right, item 9, new business, A, discussion and necessary action regarding financing options for capital projects.
Okay. So in your handouts, you have payment schedules from Waukesha State Bank, PNC, and a debt payment schedule by year. A couple of benchmarks to consider. The current 10-year treasury is around 4%. And the state trust fund loan program rate is at 6% for terms from 2 to 20 years. So just to recap our last borrow, back in December of 2022, we borrowed $520,000 for our 2023 capital projects, and that was secured at a 3.4% rate on a 7-year loan. So the current rate quotes, I will start with highest and go down to lowest. So Town Bank offered us 6.5% fixed for a 5, 7, or 10-year tax exempt loan. There's no prepayment penalty on a 5-year, but there is a 2% penalty on the remaining principal balance for 7 or 10-year. They do not charge underwriting fees, but we still incur the legal fees, which are approximately $5,000 for closing. If we transition our primary checking account to them, they'd offer us 6%. I pushed back stating we have a number of deposits with them. We have 4 accounts with them currently, and that was not enough to satisfy their deposits requirement and receive the lower rate. So therefore, I did not push for repayment schedules as their quote was higher than the state trust fund loan program. PNC waived their $1 million deposit requirement from the last time that they quoted us, and their offer is 5.18% on a 5 or 7-year tax exempt loan, no balloon options. And you'll just notice in your handouts, there's multiple options from Waukesha State Bank. And then there's one PNC one, which is the 7-year that they offered us. You'll notice too, I just calculated on the PNC, you'll see the callable option. So after first year with prepayment penalties applied, and those start at 6% and they decrease down to 1% through the obligation. So despite the lower rate, lower than Town Bank, they have pretty high call fees. So next we have Waukesha State Bank. They offered us 3.6% for a 7-year loan and 3.7% for the 10-year. So this is down from in budget season, they quoted us 4.2%. So That's down. And the schedules all in your handouts are assuming 750,000. Obviously that can be adjusted. And let's see, the major callouts would be the total interest paid for the 7-year is 108,000. The total interest paid for the 10-year is almost 45,000 more. And just to note, I did talk to Waukesha State Bank. We do have a new banker, so he put the amortization schedules together and didn't realize that we normally budget for that first interest payment for the next year. So we pay nothing this year at closing, and he said that would be totally fine. They can move it from, you'll notice the schedules all say October, and so it would just move to January of 2025, so we can budget for that. The difference would be that interest payment will be more than what you're seeing, but the total interest overall will still will be fine. It will still be the same total there on those sheets because we will maintain the repayment of that principal starting in April. The call options and the balloon, that's available at slightly increased rates. They did offer us that bullet option, and I just put that in there for you to review. The balloon, I don't have that available, but the banker said they can do anything. They're very flexible with any type of ballooning. So the largest principal payment could be whatever year we would prefer. Let's see, as far as fees, the Waukesha State Bank fee is $1,000, and then the Quarles and Brady is estimated at 4,500 to 5,000. So Waukesha State Bank obviously offered us the best rate, the most flexibility, and that's even including the reasonable call rates for the 7-year. So the rate is less than the current 10-year treasury, and my recommendation would be to move forward with one of those options. That's if you're considering 7 or 10 years. So if you are taking into consideration more of that debt fall off, which is the final page in your handout, you'll notice that in 2027, we have significant fall off of $1 million. So if you're considering that in your strategy, maybe a possible 5-year loan might be appealing. Town Bank did, like I mentioned, that's a 6.5% fixed, even for the 5-year, but there is no prepayment penalty. So if you wanted to pay it off early, that is one option. But I didn't get that information until this evening. So I didn't have time to go back out to Waukesha State Bank and just ask them what their counter would be for a 5-year. So that would be the only issue there is I do not have Waukesha State Bank's 5-year numbers. But if you were
But
just going,
Waukesha State won't let us pay it off early.
they don't do, no, they just offer those calls on the 5 or 7-year anniversary, depending on how long, you know, if you're going with the 7 or 10-year. So I would prefer to go with them if you were doing something standard, but if you're doing more of a creative financing and something maybe 5 years shorter term, pay it off early, then I may need to bring some more information. But I do know that our banker is, I talked to him today and he said he's very flexible with Waukesha State Bank in terms of, you know, we can ask him whatever we'd like, and any kind of creative financing, they're willing to work with us, so. That's it.
So in year one, so next year we have a $57,000 fall off. And then in 26, there's a $65,000 fall off, and then in year 27, there's a little over $1 million fall off.
Mhm.
So what I had asked is if we had a way we could pay, essentially by year 3, we can pay this. If we've always tried to keep our debt service kind of even, because residents don't seem to like this, they like this. So we don't have it, obviously year 1 and 2, next 2 years, we couldn't pay it all off, but by year 3, we could easily pay, could have paid the whole loan off in year 3. And still had plenty left at that point. But it's a matter of, you'd have to take in a higher interest loan out at that point to do that. Does it pay off? We'd have to run numbers to do that, and I did not give staff enough time to do that from when I came up with this. Or we take the low interest rate of the 3.6, in which we're actually making more than that on our money in the bank, but this isn't money in the bank, this is debt service, so, but we do need to, I mean, how soon do we need to do this? It's pretty soon.
At least 2 weeks. That's at minimum.
Mhm.
And that resolution allows for 60 days back in terms of reimbursing ourselves for any capital project spending now.
Right, because we can pay for a couple items out of our bank account right now, but then to reimburse those items, we had to pass that, that's what the resolution was. But then in the next 60 days, we have to have this figured out, finalized, and we can't wait long to do that. Especially being we have one board meeting a month. I'm still against. So that's where we're at. Becky, how are you feeling?
We have always had such a great relationship with Waukesha State Bank. I would just as soon go with them, and I don't know if, I don't know if you wanna do creative financing or just do regular.
If we. They only give the call on the 10-year?
There's a 7-year.
What's the call on the 7?
29. Or 129.
It's at 5 years either way. The call term on the 7 is,
So the 7 is the 5-year anniversary, right? And I thought that the 10 was on the 7-year anniversary.
we could do the 7-year and then just pay it off at the call,
Right, and
make it simple.
That's what I'm kind of thinking. I'm not wild about paying more interest, but they give us that option. In the end, we'll be saving money. Well, the 3.8.
3.8 for the call, so you do pay a little premium because the 3.6 is the regular 7-year. No call option for 108,000 for the life of the loan, but then the 7-year with the call. If called, you're paying 101, I mean, almost 102,000 in interest. I ran these rates by Ellers and, they were surprised too, just as Becky said, with Waukesha State Bank offering us these great rates. I will say that a loan fell off last year and then another one will be paid off this year. So it's not, we only have 2 small business loans with them. And one is around $100,000 outstanding and the other one is from just the one that we just closed on in 2022. So we're not it's not like we have a lot of loans with them.
Did you say Waukesha would balloon or that was town that would balloon?
Waukesha will balloon.
So we could essentially, even on that one with the call function,
Call. I'd have to ask about that.
because we
But I
could
can.
balloon the heck out of it and then pay it off. Max out our year 1 and 2, we could max out 1 and 2, and then year 3. As much as they'd let us,
I feel like call options are usually on the fixed, but
yeah.
I can definitely ask.
I mean, the other thing is if it's on the fixed rate, I mean, could we basically pay it almost all the way off in year 3 and just carry a very small balance? I don't want to screw the bank, but I'm not here for them. I'm here for the residents.
Mhm.
And they do give us ridiculous rates.
And it definitely won't give us a call date for the first one at 3.6.
That's what the 3.8 one is.
I know,
Right.
I know.
David's pretty nice.
Mhm.
I mean, I'd like to, I mean, no, if we can do it by 5, year 5,
A balloon at 5 years,
well, just call it.
well, then it's fine.
Yeah,
With
I will.
7
On the
years,
7-year.
I mean, that would be my worst case scenario,
That's-
I guess. I mean, if depending on what we could do with the balloons, but it wasn't enough time to figure that all out.
If we did the, so 7 years, then we'd be able. Follow it in 5, in year 5.
Right,
Mhm.
dude, that's what I mean, I would. To me, that's like the worst case, that I'd go for. But if they were able to do something with,
That'd be 3.8.
Mhm.
That's pretty darn good.
Mhm.
yeah, and then we knock 2 years off of it with I mean, there's no issue with paying that thing off
Right.
at year 5 whatsoever, but.
Becky, I was just curious, what do you mean by creative financing that you had mentioned?
No, she said that they were, someone was creative financing and she had not talked to Waukesha State.
Okay.
That's all.
All right.
Instead of just.
We don't even, at this point, we don't know if we need the full 750 though.
Well, but if we get started, putting something together. We get started on putting something together. It might take us a little bit to. Start the process with them and get them. Get us the final. So we know what our capital project was and we know what possible addition it is. That would give us 7. Very close.
But we would, I guess, once we get it identified, the exact number we need, we're not gonna borrow more than.
7.
No, I mean, but it'll be, most likely we'd be borrowing less than that. I just wanna borrow more than we have to.
We're not fine. This was just, the 750 was kind of most we were looking at, which we have with capital projects, budgeted and capital project.
Then when are we gonna know that number?
A lot more tomorrow. All depends what happens tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, it's a tanker. It's a tanker. It's whether or not we're buying a tanker. It's not agendized, but it's related to the loan. We're buying a tanker, we gotta borrow more. If we're not buying a tanker, we borrow less.
Right.
We've also got some other funds available there for some water funds. I know we had available with that too, but I mean, there's those things to figure out. We have to get our DPW projects paid for and some other things that we authorized at the end of last year. So we gotta get this moving for that. So what are you thinking, Becky? Where do you wanna be at? Would you be good with that 7 and then pay at 5, or do you want?
I'm good with the 7 and then. I don't know where we're gonna be in 5 years, so,
It looks like pretty good shape.
well, we think, but I mean, we thought that once before too. But yeah, I'm willing to do the 7 and then if it's feasible, pay it off in 5. That's fine.
I agree, the 3.8 and pay off in 5 if we can.
Yeah, 3.8 is a great rate. I think
Mhm.
we would roll on doing that.
You need a motion for that, or are you just gonna bring it back when we have it all figured out?
We're gonna need a motion.
Can I ask a question? So would you want balloon payments, meaning you would want something for 2027, like that?
Within the confines of what we have, well, I guess you have to work that out with Kathy, because we want to make sure that we want to keep our debt service as even as possible. I mean, our tax rate is even as possible. I mean, there's nothing wrong with dropping off if it's gonna stay dropped off, but you don't want to drop and then go up and then drop and go up.
Exactly.
So let's just try to, that downward trend is awesome, but let's try to keep that downward trend down and even then.
Mhm.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
Mhm.
So, I mean, you're gonna bring something back. So I guess if you can balloon it and make sense and it keeps that line even, good slope, I'd be good with that, everybody.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Paul, you haven't been around for as much of this as we have, but I mean, so we've always. On our debt service, we just try to keep that an even now, because we got our operating levy number and our debt service levy number, and trying to
Mhm.
keep those numbers as even as possible, so we can predict in the future, like if it's gonna go up, we can borrow. Appropriately, so we don't have this big spike in our debt service number that the residents feel, and then next year has a big drop off, and it's, hey, that's great, but then the next year it goes back to even and everybody's ticked off at us again, so. Just kind of trying to,
Even it out.
right,
Yeah. I'm in favor of that.
okay,
Do you have to make the motion though? I make a motion that we go with a Waukesha State Bank for 3.80%. For 750,000 or less. Okay, and there's a callable, once on 4/1/29.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Becky, any other discussion?
Mm-mm.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item B, discussion necessary action regarding creation of the village code, chapter 18. Sewer code.
So we worked on the sewer code for about 8 months. And it's been brought to the Public Works and Utility Committee. I don't know, it's probably 6 times. 2 of those times we dealt with the grinder pump issue. The code then was sent to the village of Sussex to make sure that we that it was consistent with what our agreements were with them on the water treatment. And then those were approved by the committee and then sent to the with the understanding that we would send them to the attorney for his review. And that was done, and that's what's in front of you.
Okay.
So as you heard from our residents, that the name change in the code is the grinder pump change, where in the past, the grinder pump, the people that own the grinder pumps were maintained and replaced by the village. Unless you were, you bought them, yeah, you got your pumps and grinder pumps in 2019 or later. And so that's where our committee was stuck on. We had half, small portion of people that were paying their own maintenance on their pumps. And then we had a portion, the larger portion of our community that has grinder pumps were being maintained by.
Just kind of hoping this would go long enough that Mark would be here, because Mark's in the committee. Linda, you're on the committee to kind of have a discussion about this.
Mhm.
Because the rest of us were not present for those discussions at this point, but Linda, you're gonna get the brunt of this.
We do have Ed Eberly, who's one of our committee members, came and sit in just in case there were any technical questions.
Joe?
Hi, Joe, sorry, I do this every time. I work with him. At the States. No wonder everyone looked at me kind of, Joe.
I guess, so over the history of this has gone back and forth. I was at a lot of, when it was the history of the Lisbon Sanitary District was in control of the sanitary sewer service in Lisbon for a long time. It was not the Lisbon Board. It was the sanitary district that did this. So anything that was done with the sanitary district. It was not done with the Lisbon Board. So I just want to put that down. There's a lot of things that probably happened back in the day. I wasn't around for them. I was 3 years old. So I
Mhm.
just saying.
Mhm.
The grinder pumps has been the biggest issue because they're the most expensive thing on the
Mhm.
list. I know there's some maintenance issues here too and everything else. Which I completely understand. I will say from my side of things, this cannot be a forever thing. I said that in 2019. I had discussions with people. I think this is a very delicate issue, but I don't think the village of Lisbon for the rest of everybody's lives and history are gonna be responsible for something that was done back in the 90s. That
Mhm.
being said, I do think we should have noticed them differently. I'm gonna say that.
Mhm.
I knew this was, once I seen this is on here, it's a hotbed issue. I know nobody showed up, but they didn't show up because they didn't know. That's why they didn't show up. So, and they probably wouldn't have showed up tonight had the Bellic not sent anything out because nobody's watching agendas. I can tell you when I'm off this board, I'll be damned if I'm looking at an agenda. But, so we need to decide how we're gonna proceed from here.
It is a hot button, Mike, it is. When we were in the audience years ago, when they started this, another former board member, nothing that we know of was brought up about this. And we were both surprised when we get on the board that it was in place. And I know in 2019, we came real close to reversing it. But at that time, maybe,
It actually was reversed and then reversed again,
yeah,
just to show that not, if the
Yeah.
decision is made, there's no decision made that cannot be undone
right,
here. So it's not, I know I'm
Right,
hearing some
right.
pretty harsh comments towards us tonight, but there's nothing that's done that cannot be undone and vice versa. That's how, and everything changes with whoever's sitting in whatever committees
Exactly.
and boards are there. So in 3 years, there could be all new members up here and everything could change again.
exactly.
It's just how it works.
The
so-
board is different.
Right.
So what's right or wrong, I think, obviously, we have to consider the residents as well, and as far as the community. But for 35 years, we paid for all the issues with it, and it has become a big ticket item altogether. And I know that, Joe DiStefano, who is the highway guy, he has got someone who has done some work for the district that is, let's just say, is anxious to help, I believe, and be a little bit more conscientious as far as the money goes.
Sure.
So he would be,
That person no longer is with
oh,
us.
Who?
Randy is-
Joe,
No, Randy.
Randy, okay.
Is
Oh,
the one that learned how to do maintenance and such.
right, no, I know, but there was a plumber that Joe had come in and do some work. That wasn't Randy, it was somebody else.
Somebody to, yes, to do the maintain.
Yeah, to do some repairs, so there's some checking that could be done, I just think we as a town, and it has nothing to do with us becoming a village incorporation. Cause this has been going on for a long time.
You're 100% right. This is not something that,
Mm-hmm.
so the committee structure change and what did change becoming a village is the fact that now the sanitary district does not exist.
Right,
So we could have adopted all the same rules that were under the sanitary district, but things will change over time, no matter if we're a village or a town. But this is not something that's being required because we're a village. It's nothing like that. I know that's been brought up a few times too, but
right,
the thing that did change is now we don't have a sanitary district anymore. We're a
Correct.
utility district,
right.
and that is encompassing the entire village and not just one area.
Mhm,
So any of the new sewer and water districts is all part of that,
right,
which we have the Leeds development, Business Park East, which has sewer and water over there.
mhm.
So,
And I know, I understand from the previous board. That they were going on the engineers. Recommendations, obviously, and they really. Has there been some mistakes maybe with them in the beginning? Sure, but we have changed engineers and stuff, and I just think something has to be done. And I just kind of think, going back to 219. To me, I know you mentioned that having notice in something, I guess we did discuss it at the board meetings and stuff. And I think, it's just becoming very expensive, just like we all pay for our own wells, we all pay for our own, expenses in our home, and I guess that just what falls into it. I did a lot of search in 2019 to see who paid and who didn't for stuff. And there were nothing, we're the only ones that have paid. So I just think it's becoming a hot button. And I think, homeowner might find it a little more reasonable, or anyone, raise prices with maybe somebody else against, not for develop, but I'm not, saying you have to go with them or not. I'm just saying they can be checked around.
Oh, Mark's on there. Hey, Mark.
Good evening.
We are on the 9B discussing the sewer code right now. And we are talking grinder pumps. As far as this is kind of a little side note on here too, as far as notices for people on our website, we have an ability to click on there and sign up for notices, which will email people
Mhm.
notices of agendas. I really recommend that everybody who can do that, because love it or hate it, the way government is set up is we post agendas, the agendas are posted, and that's how we notice people. We cannot mail things out for every single agenda item. We can't. I understand this one is very important and it was gonna be important for a lot of people, but we can't send out a mailer every single time or be calling everybody every single time. Again, I know grinder pumps is a hotter button issue than most.
Mhm.
But just wanted to throw that out there with going on the website and making them, you can click on there to be emailed notices of agenda, especially for the utility. It's not the sanitary district anymore. It's the public utility.
Mhm. And I do have to make note of, I would like to, that it was changed maybe back in 2019, that all new people, builders, homeowners that are building their home, were responsible for their own grinder pumps. That was
And
changed.
that's, I guess, a question for John here. So we've established two different setups in our sanitary district where we had the original people who had grinder pumps, and then we had anyone that moved in and added a grinder pump, and they were under two different sets of rules. Are we looking at any kind of liability with that?
I assume that was probably looked at the time, but no, I think you can establish, there's a reasonable basis for the criteria.
Okay. And it was, but we have new council, so that's the new council. Okay.
So
So,
what was the thought process to have the new people not be treated like the old people were?
Just because of the costs involved and so forth. And if they start doing it themselves, the costs were so much cheaper. for
they
the
knew what they were
homeowner
getting
to-
into.
Pardon me?
They knew what they were getting into.
Yes, they knew
If you're
what they were
building a new
getting
home,
into.
you knew what you were getting into. You knew you were gonna need a grinder pump. You knew that ahead of time. It wasn't something that was. Like, it's all, we've got 30 years of history on what was happening.
Yeah.
They'd be knowledgeable of it.
Yes. Mhm.
Did the sanitary district at any time, or the public utility, I'm sure didn't at this point, but as far as the cost of dropping that pipe to where it could be gravity, I'm assuming that'd be pretty astronomical, being the price we just got for doing another subdivision.
I have no
Cause I
idea.
think that would be
We did not discuss that.
No.
$500,000 or more.
Oh, my gosh.
If we look at what it was in the other. Right. So somebody had brought up the point of dropping the pipe so that the grinder pumps would not be needed. I can tell you there was a subdivision on the east side of Lisbon that we looked at putting sewer in, and it was
Oh.
astronomical, the amount of money it was to do that. And that money is not borne by the entire village of Lisbon. That is put back on the people that it in front of their homes.
Right.
So I don't think anybody here is gonna wanna do that. The grinder pumps would seem very, very inexpensive compared to dropping that pipe nowadays.
Right.
So, Mark, I don't know if you have any input as far as you wanna add in there as far as for bringing the grinder pump fees back to the residents.
Yeah, it's been something we've been debating for a while now. And I believe, based off a review of the last code that I saw, that the direction that we would be moving to, with the homeowner boarding the cost of the replacement of the grinder pumps. I just feel, with the entire village being responsible for the system, that the individual homeowners would be the ones that are now responsible for the grinder pumps. And I know that that's not a popular decision with everybody, because some people were under different rules, but as systems and communities grow and change and economies of scale, the Public Works Committee believes it's fair and equitable for everybody to have to, should you have one, need to replace it on your own. We have a lot of residents in the community that have these in their houses that aren't part of this, what used to be the sanitary. And these residents are not asking the village to replace their private system when, should it happen, need to be replaced. So we fear it's fair and equitable to proceed in this manner moving forward. And we believe it would be legal to proceed this way.
Did the committee at any point consider a sunset of the grinder pumps over some time
No,
versus?
even from then, even 5 years ago?
No,
Nothing,
I
even
mean,
just
now, this
recently.
time.
Moving forward.
Yeah,
We,
no.
we, in 2019, that was one of the things that was discussed, was a sunset. It was discussed not doing it.
It's
doing
in-
at
It was
different
discussed
rates, I
then,
mean-
right? That's what I'm saying. There was kind of notice, but in this case, unfortunately, things weren't sent out just because we were talking at the local level here.
Um,
What were you meaning, like a phase out kind of thing, Joe?
right.
Yeah, like a phase out, like. It'll, from 0 to 100% in 5 years, something to, in that respect.
Right, it gives somebody, like. That's the part that for me is. I mean, I've told this to different people I've talked to. I do think that these things have to become the responsibility of the homeowner at some point. That's how the communities do it. I totally recognize that a long time ago. This was accepted due to the fact that saved the community a lot of money, but things have definitely changed, but. I don't think it's good if we just abruptly do this without giving notice either. So that's where if there's a possibility to potentially phase these out over, or even percentages over time. Becky, I don't know how you feel about this, but
Well, I guess my biggest problem with this is that, I mean, you are talking a lot of money, and I feel that these people should have been notified that you guys were talking about it. I just think and I really don't, because I don't have sewer. Does everybody have a grinder pump?
No.
34?
No, there's about 32, I want to
32.
say 34 grinder pumps.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
I still think that, the people should have been notified that this was coming down the pipes. And I agree with Joe, isn't there something we can do for these 32? You
38,
said
it
about-
might be 38, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's.
38, well,
between 30
whatever.
Yeah,
The-
whatever
the
it is.
Whatever
small
it
amount
is.
of people that, because this is a huge investment, is it not?
And the thing is back when they were put in, they were a lot cheaper than they are now. Now they've become pretty astronomical.
Right,
And that fights on both sides of the fence, that hurts, because the
Right.
homeowner, it hurts, and it hurts the village because. It's what's considered fair, and I don't wanna really get into that as much, because that's tough.
So with the phase-in idea, were you thinking of? With the phase-in idea, if the committee or the board is interested in something like that, are you thinking of? Giving them notice that the phase-in would start in 2025, so then we would cover everything in 2024. In 2025, a portion would go, and then in 2026, set 50% breakdown. What I'm trying to figure out, what were you thinking?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 people here for this tonight. If there's notice given and people know, there's going to be 38 people here. They will be. There's gonna, and maybe there'll be 70 people here because it affects both sides of the fence. But I mean, there's there's both sides of it. Some people don't want to pay for it, some people do want to pay for it. It's back and forth. It was $80 a quarter difference, I think, back in 2019 because there was a proposal that was to pay for the grinder pumps or not pay for the grinder pumps. And I think it was like $80 per quarter per resident or something like that.
I'm not
might-
following you. What do you?
Back in 2019, there were
Right.
2 plans that were put in front of the sanitary district. One paid for all the grinder pumps, one did not. And it was the cost of There was actually multiple plans done. It was like, then you had just the people on grinder pump, you had thought about having a different rate, but I don't think that was
That way,
legal.
yeah. No, that was never, just to kind of charge them a little more to build up a fund for them or something like that. Yeah, we talked about a couple different things. We talked
Just
about,
some history on
yeah.
it.
And
So,
we-
I mean, this thing has been debated back and
Oh,
forth. for a
it's,
long
yeah,
time.
it is.
Right.
We talked about leaving the original people on it, but when they sell, the new people have to pay for it, but then that causes a problem. So I didn't like that one either. So at this point, to go back, we're gonna go back and forth, and these people
And-
will be coming to the meeting, and I understand it.
And that's what we had talked about back in the day about doing it as far as if you were an original homeowner that was there when it was put in, it was one thing, but.
Yes,
And there was no way to determine that. And then we do have original homeowners here from back in that time. I mean,
Right.
one of them.
right.
I'm just curious, what was the problem with when you sell? We no longer pay.
Our council at the time said it wasn't legal.
Yeah, it's their property.
Because
we're
that would be
paying for
something
it.
I think would have
Yeah.
been something that was supported at that time.
Yeah,
As long as you disclosed it in the sale, why couldn't you do that?
yeah, exactly.
It was beat down really quickly by our council at the time. I was at those meetings.
Hmm.
And I don't remember why. Because we thought that was a more fair way at the time to potentially do it.
Any thought on that, John?
Well, I'd have to figure out why they thought it was illegal, because it's not dawning on me, we do special assessments that become due and owing upon sale, and there
Yeah,
are other things that occur upon sale. So I'd have to see if they issued an opinion or whatever. To me, it seemed like, that's why I asked, what was the problem with it? And
Yeah.
you've answered my question.
yeah,
Prior legal counsel thought it wasn't enforceable.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other examples that we do that with, and we know we do it special assessments, we know, other things that come due and owing
Yeah.
upon.
and I understand the issue with not sending letters now, and it's unfortunately wasn't done. But, it happens, but, I know, I think. The way things went at that time, I think there should have been notice that, hey, this is gonna hot button, problem, and it's gonna keep coming back and showing
Well,
up.
it's gonna come back in the next board and the next board and the next. board.
Exactly.
It is. That's why I wanna come to some finality on it. If it's a phase out, if it's as you sell and we go back and see, I mean, it's,
Yeah, it is.
there's different options,
Yeah.
or if the board decides that it's done, it's done. I mean,
Right,
it's how the board decides to vote, but I'm looking at faces and it doesn't seem like that's.
What's the major cost? Just for my education, the replacement of,
Annual maintenance is about just under 13,000 a year, and then a replacement is about.
Not each.
understood.
I thought it was 308,
Per home.
308
Per
to,
home.
yeah,
But
to
it's
maintain
about-
them. But you're
Right.
talking 13,000 for everybody.
Right.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's what it
For
is.
all of them. I thought you were asking what it would cost the village, or are you asking what? it would
No,
cost-
no, I'm asking what, you said it was a large cost going higher and higher, and I just wondered if it was the replacement of the.
308 a year for annual, if we do, continue doing annuals or maybe annuals. Inspections, and then a replacement is about 5.
And how often do those usually, if they're maintained well, need to be replaced?
It really depends on.
How they use it.
How they use it.
Mhm.
If they use it properly or if they don't, I don't know,
There's a lot of things that can destroy them.
Yeah,
So
And if they're destroyed, they're usually not repairable, just,
we found a way to repair them just recently. So we had, depending on how badly they go out, we did have 2 repaired the last time. You have to remember that when you have it repaired, you have to have an extra. So you can't leave somebody wait for 2 months before their grinder pump works again. So you have to drop one in immediately and then get that one fixed. They either come back and replace it or use that one for the next person's step. Goes out.
do you know how many we've had in the last year on these?
actually, there haven't been many since we talked about it in 2019. It used to come up more repairs, more replacements. And actually lately it hasn't been, because I don't know if the homeowners are watching it better taken care of it better? I don't know.
So since 2019, there's been extra money that's been put aside for the grinder pumps. Well, there was, because the rate was higher.
Well, that way, yeah.
So we were planning for this. Is there a way we can look?
Mhm.
Sorry, Kathy, I'm gonna say this. Is there a way we can look and see what that money was
And
since 19? Because you have extra money in the sanitary district budget. Subtract out any pumps that have been replaced, see what extra money is left from that. And then use that as a fund until we phase these things out to replace the pumps.
I
Because then it's
myself,
fair to the people that. I'm assuming that's gonna be a decent amount of money, because I think we planned on 2 pumps a year.
I don't remember. I really don't remember. I'm sorry. I myself am not favor of a 5-year program. I think that's too long.
Well, what I'm saying is we take that money that was set aside in the sanitary district at that time. There's still money in that fund. How much money was? When it transitioned, it was 250,000.
I don't think so. I don't know what it is.
We moved some from.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that has to go, that's used for maintenance on the entire sanitary
The
district.
entire thing.
That's all the money people put in, but it's a matter of how much was attributed potentially for those pumps.
I don't, you know, I have
I'm
a
just
pro-
trying to think outside the box here.
I don't remember when we, spoke with Mike, that he mentioned that there was set asides for pumps.
I don't think so.
But there was money attributed in the dollar amount. I probably still have the notes somewhere, to be honest with you, but.
And so there may have been 2 attributed to what they put in for their budget for the rates, but then if they didn't, if, let's say you only replaced 1, it went to fund, it stayed in the fund for replacement management of other items, which is stay. I mean, I can check to see how much we estimated, how much we did for each year. And if we did over that amount for each year, or under that amount, and how much we, the replacement, how much my grinder pump set aside was.
I mean, it should be, hopefully there's some notes back from when I thought it was 2 pumps, it was it. Which
We'd have
was
to talk to Mike.
like 10
Yeah.
grand a year
You would tell us what
since 2019, and if we did 1 pump since then, there'd be some money set aside.
last year, so.
There were 2 last year.
2 and
That would have been
23, I
the whole.
know, but that personally, I know, but before that, I don't know if it was taken care of. It was just that I worked with DPW.
Can it possibly be, if there is money set aside just for the grinder pumps? Boy, we went through a lot of stuff and I'm really sorry, I don't remember. But can the homeowner partake and then the district pay part of that for a short time?
Well, that's what I'm trying to get to, is if there was.
Yeah.
Like, there was no money set aside, so then it's just that it was budgeted, it was extra money
For
budgeted to
replacement,
do
for
it.
replacement of
'Cause there
work
was
in the
two
whole
rates.
area, we have to by state law.
Yeah.
Have a fund there.
There was 2 rates that were charged. It was a rate that was gonna be charged if we weren't paying for it, and it was a rate that was gonna be charged if we were. Obviously. Things get more expensive as time goes, and I don't
Right.
think the rates have been adjusted in a while.
Right, we just raised it $5, so it's $155 every 3 months.
So I don't know. I think it needs to be,
Do we often discern with any particularity as to whether it was negligence or,
well, that was supposed to happen, but we did find that it never was. It didn't matter if there were rocks in it, it was never the homeowners.
There was only one time that I can remember that it was called out when I think it was Wooded Hills, and this little girl had she was autistic or something, and she threw a whole bunch of stuff down the toilet. So her parents had to pay for it, but luckily they had insurance that paid for it.
Right.
There is insurance that you can get for it.
And so. That's interesting, because I did some research today, a little bit of research, and I did talk to Develop to see if they've ever not heard of insurance to cover it, and they said, no.
No.
My insurance company, I called my insurance agent and asked about it, and they said they have homeowners, they have insurance for things that are in the house above the ground, but they don't have
Mhm.
mechanicals that are underground. And they do have another type that covers just the pipe, but it
Mhm.
doesn't cover any mechanicals. So
Yeah, see this one, because at the time there was so much stuff going on, and I can tell you the house where it was, But it was like around extensive damage, but the insurance did cover it. So, you know, which was really nice.
I mean, I think it would be a kind of a muddy situation where the municipality owns the infrastructure, yet we're requiring
Yeah.
citizens to insure it. I mean, whose responsibility is to make sure that they stay up on their
But we're saying,
premiums?
but we don't own it.
It's theirs.
We're saying that, this is saying that that is theirs.
Yeah. It's
We're,
theirs.
by this plan, we're saying at the road, from the road to the house, it's theirs.
Yeah, and I guess just to re-echo what the committee had brought up is that we did talk about some kind of phase in for this, but the fear of the committee was that not everybody would partake in it, but there would be some pumps getting replaced based on intentional actions. So that was a consideration of the committee, not saying that everybody would partake in that, call it far-fetched. I think for a lot of people it would be, but you know, it could happen.
I'm not following. Somebody
That
would
somebody would throw
deliver,
rocks.
That somebody would intentionally damage it to
get a new one
replacement from the community's funds rather than their own private. funds.
during the period of
During the period
phasing.
of sunset.
What did
Well-
you guys consider for a sunset?
I don't think we ever got to a sunset because we went back to that 2019 language and we felt that based off of that was clear at that time that going forward where we are today, it would not be the responsibility of the community, it would be the responsibility of the individual user of the sewer. And we read it in open meeting and that's where we're at, is some people interpreted it one way and some people interpreted it another way, but the consensus was that what is in the proposed code is what the committee as a whole wanted to take. I know it's not popular. I'd be in the crowd too if it was me, but unfortunately, I think the position that we're in, it's a losing situation sitting up here because we're representing people that have these pumps. We're representing people that are part of the system that don't have these pumps, and we're also representing people that aren't even part of the sewer service area. And you know, it's three different views on it.
How much was the develop notice today? 600?
308. 308.
That's what they
For
got in the
yearly
mail?
maintenance.
For yearly maintenance.
That's what they got in the mail today.
That's what they got.
We've always done it every year. Could it be every other year? Sure. I mean, that's just, you know,
Well, if residents own their own pumps, they could do it every year, every other year, or never do it at all.
exactly.
But it was always done because it saved pumps.
Mhm. Or they can go to whoever they want, you know, it doesn't
Right.
have to be developed.
And that's why DeBock sent out what they did, because they were,
Trying to get the customer before. the
Right.
customer.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if a creative way that the committee didn't intentionally consider was if there was a sunset. During that period, we could have a certification of maintenance performed to guarantee that the homeowner is keeping up on it during the sunset. That might be a creative option to alleviate some of the potential immediate cost to the homeowner, but.
So are you saying that as long as they keep the maintenance up?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I'll just draw an example, some companies insure wedding rings from the stone coming out, and you have to go in for every 6 months to check on it. If you miss that 6 months, well, then they're not gonna guarantee a replacement. So it'd just be like a surety for us to know that these pumps are being maintained during the sunset. I mean, the day after it's serviced, it could go out, who knows, but.
So, when they service them, I'm just trying to, you've got $308 for the maintenance. But then when they're servicing them, they find, rings or whatever's in the pump. I don't know what's in the pump, but any of those parts that need to be replaced, then there's additional costs from develop. So that's just, the 308 is just to My understanding is just to inspect. Is that right?
I don't think they found too much problems with them though. Every year, not that I'm aware of, that it was just a kind of a maintenance thing and, I don't think they found any issues with it.
But since you've been doing it, the
Yeah.
pumps seem to be lasting a lot longer.
Yeah, we've been doing that for a while.
So
Actually,
is the biggest cost the annual or the biggest cost the replacement, or is it all the cost? That's. The reason I ask, I'll cut to the quick, is was there any discussion about charging it as a special charge on the tax bill? Saying effective next year, we're gonna charge you 308 or whatever the charge is. I'm just throwing out options that it's everybody else pays it, as you stated, if they have to pay to pump their septic system, they pay it. If they have to replace their tank, they have to do it. I'm trying to break it into the parts, the maintenance, which is everybody wants, because it's better. I just wondered if there was any discussion. They pay for their garbage, they pay for,
I don't think that came up in the sense that they're not paying for that right now. So the sanitary district now, the utility was borne that cost. And I don't think that was brought up to trade that kind of special charge on their tax bill. But it is surely a valid option.
and you could say it's effective next year, so they have time if you want. I'm just
The biggest,
asking what options were discussed. Yeah, you have a number of different things. First, you have clear out negligence, and apparently you
Yes.
handle that. If it's clearly shown it's the damage was caused by delivery
Grease
or
or-
something,
toy car.
then they pay for it, right? And that's already in the policy?
no, DeBellic is supposed to be giving us a sheet of paper. And they didn't always do it until we really got on them, that the cost is, it's a homeowners, or the cost is the district. And just from knowing what went on over there in the Wooded Hills area, there are issues that perhaps we should not have paid, but we did pay it.
Mhm.
So.
But is there any doubt in anybody's mind that if they're showing that it's the homeowner's fault, they should pay for it?
Oh,
I'm trying
exactly.
to divide these into pieces that
Absolutely.
maybe, that
If they tell us,
if DeBellic makes
but they
the
didn't
notice.
always.
Right. I just wanted to know if that
Sure.
was a given,
Yeah. Well, it's a given to us, but
The bill is given, not necessarily a technical report. That is.
Well, no, I know, but you just have to say, we're not paying you, DeBellic, until you made a determination of whose fault it was.
Well, they're always.
If it's wear and
The-
tear.
The thing
right?
is they're,
Yeah, I was just saying so.
yeah, because they know that.
we do that now. If they don't put it on there, we don't pay until they give us a sheet of paper telling us, and then we pay it.
Okay,
But now it's the policy of the board that they didn't do that years ago.
okay.
We just paid it.
But you would want a policy that if DeBellic says in the rare case that it was the homeowners,
Oh, sure.
you would want a policy that at a minimum
Yes.
says that. Does everybody agree with that?
Mhm.
Okay. And so what do you think of the idea of the yearly, maintenance? I'm surprised he was willing to do it at the same price. Normally when you have 38 contracts, it's, you get a better deal than when you have an individual contract, but that's what it said today, the one you saw.
Bill, I just saw the bill today from him.
Understood. And that's the yearly rate?
Paul, how are you feeling about this?
I definitely think there should be a phase in, absolutely. I'm not sure what it needs to look like. I don't know how that really needs to look at, but I think we definitely need to not just throw this on them all at once. That's my feeling, 100%.
No, I don't think we should have a phase in because it was discussed 5 years ago. And they kind of anticipated maybe they should have that something's going on, especially how the meetings went. Because one person was on, one person was off, and so it kind of went back and forth.
Becky?
I think there should be a phasing. I don't know what, but
Right.
I I do feel strongly that this ultimately needs to be the responsibility of the homeowner. It's been going on for years and it hasn't been put to bed, and I guess nobody's really tackled it clearly enough to get it to a point where we can finally say, this is the date. I guess I wouldn't be opposed to a sunset if it is a short sunset, in the sense of maybe a couple or 3 years. And there is a guarantee, like what council said, that the homeowner is getting charged for the maintenance going forward. I think that could alleviate a lot of the concerns of, you know, in the case of our contract, do they go and find out it needs to be replaced? Well, the homeowner's already borne the cost of maintenance, so in that sunset, we as a utility would replace it, but there's gotta be an end date to this. We can't keep postponing this. This has been going on since before I was even on the board. And
Yeah.
It's gotta get solved somehow, and the cost of these things are never gonna be cheaper. Whether it's the individual homeowners, it's it's the whole community now that the utility is taking it.
Sure.
Mr. President, maybe we could clarify that one point to whether everybody agrees that ultimately it should be the responsibility of the homeowners? Is that all 5 of yours?
I
Really?
agree with that, yeah.
I agree.
I eventually.
I just wanted to get the basics done
Right.
so
I
that
think,
then it's a question of when and how and what portions and things like that. And whether you want to divide it up. Mark's indicated, 1 to 3 years, and then talking about the phase in. How many think the community should still pay, contract to have them inspected because of the importance of that and then charge it back?
I think for me, that depends on the phase in time.
Well, but that well,
If
I
we're
don't know
doing
what.
a-
Yeah, I understand your concern, but isn't the next point then, if they're paying for the maintenance, ultimately, be it starting next year or the year after or this year, whenever, a phase in would say next year at the earliest. I would think you wouldn't have a phase in if you weren't gonna say next year. Effective, you would pay for the contract this year, but they're now put on notice that going forward, it's gonna be a
I'm
special charge.
breaking the maintenance away from the pump. Because
Exactly, that's what I'm.
Right off the
thinking,
bat, if everybody is responsible for their own maintenance year one, we save $13,000. The sanitary district, not sanitary, the utility district saves $13,000. That's two and a half pumps. Year 2, that's 5 pumps. Year 3, that's 7.5. So. If there's a way, like if it's gonna be everyone's paying for. Immediately starting next year, everybody is paying for their own maintenance. Then is it a 5-year phase? But if nobody's paying it, is it a 3-year or 2-year phase in then? You know what I'm saying? Cause there's money involved here. And I mean, rates are not gonna be going down. They're not. I mean, things are only getting more expensive. The rates haven't changed that much in a long time, which is great. You guys have managed money very well on that aspect, but. If it's, for me, if it was the resident starts paying for their next year, then could it be a 5-year phase? Cause as long as you're not doing more than 2 pumps a year, we're money ahead. But then at year 5, it's over. I know it's more than
I
3
have
years.
I have a
for
crazy
estimating.
idea, and I think it's an unfortunate, but potentially legitimate concern that. If they know they have 5 years to get a new pump, they're gonna get a new pump within the next 5 years, right?
Well, that's
So
that's what Mark had brought up.
Right, but so isn't the other way to do it is say you get one more free pump, if you can keep this pump for next 20 years. And then you get a new one after that, everybody gets one more new pump, repaired or replaced, and after that, then we're done. I just throw that out, it's $192,000, but that's over. I mean, then they have an incentive to maintain and keep that pump as long as they can. Because there's no incentive to say within the next 5 years, 3 years, 2 years during the phase in, they want to keep that one as long as they can.
Oh, so you're
There-
talking about giving them an additional pump, just one.
One
whenever,
more
either
time.
Tomorrow or 20 years from now.
Yeah,
I don't think that this was not considered. We've had people that have not replaced pumps, and we've had people that have had multiple pumps. So,
But if they're taking care of the maintenance, that takes the maintenance off of that.
Well, there was different scenarios too of the pipes and how they were and the distance they went and. There was a lot to this, there really was.
Yeah,
I'm not trying-
I'll tell you, I went, I'm in the sewer service area. I'm not a sewer user. I have my own private system. I have neighbors directly next to me that are sewer users. And I went down the block and talked to somebody who's a sewer user plus grinder. I got 3 different opinions on where there should be. I said to them, where should we cut this off today? Should we sunset this? 3 different answers. I don't think unless the board can come to some consensus, you know, we're not gonna get anywhere and.
Right.
Whoever's on the board in a few years is we doing with the same thing and reinventing the wheel.
We have to come to a
Yeah.
finalization of what this is gonna be, whether it's as the home is sold. A time frame, whatever, there's gotta be some finality to this.
The homeownership thing was considered. There was some question about what technically qualifies as a home sale. You know, what,
Well, when I brought this up in 2019, because I was the one that brought it up. I said, if you owned your home when it was put in, you were part of the original agreement, you were bound by it, but if you sold your home, it was over. To me, it was it, so, you know. Ed was the original homeowner and he was in there, as long as he lives there, he was bound by that agreement, we honored it and that stuck with it. But the second Ed sold his house, no matter who it was, that ended.
I
And
said
then-
that too.
I mean,
I
I
agree with
wasn't,
you,
back
yeah.
then, I was in favor of that, but also, I was looking at if these
Yeah.
homes were
Oh.
sold over the years. That also was.
Yeah.
In effect. So. To me, that was like, back then was the truest way of doing it, because
well, we also talked about, if your name is Ed.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
So Ed, let's just assume Ed, for purposes of this analogy, Ed owns his own home on his name, on his title.
Mhm.
And now he puts it into his estate on his title. Is that a home ownership
Poss-
change? We discussed this,
Yep,
you know. That's where I think this can get a lot muddier than it really needs to be.
And the children take it,
yes,
and they've really never got to change hands because now.
The
it's in-
the beneficiary of the trust assumes
I can tell you,
ownership.
I can tell you back then, I said, I didn't care who it was, if it was a trust, if it was whatever, it did not matter to me, it was, because it was too hard to dictate.
that's why we shouldn't go with that.
To me, it was the second it
Too
changed,
hard.
if the name changed on the title. That was it. I know what the states are different, but I know why the states are done, and I had stated back then, the name changed, that was the end.
Well, you
Yeah.
mean, okay, so no trust or anything, or no daughter, no, okay, okay,
That's what I had said back in
Yeah.
19.
okay.
Name will change it from- Because you change your deed when your spouse passes, but that one of them is still.
But we had talked about if the original homeowner was still living there, but who's gonna go knock, how do you know?
Exactly.
Like,
And that was the thing, we didn't want to
Yeah.
put an undue burden on staff either.
Right.
Right,
To
But
chase.
I'm gonna tell you, this is 38 homes, this is not 360. We need to recognize the fact we were talking about 38 potential homes. So I'll bet you 20 of them or 30 of them have changed already. So that's 20 or 30 that are off. The way I was proposing back in 19. But that maintained with the rest of the people who were originally on. I mean, that was already a big knockoff, but like I said, our council at the time said, no way.
mhm.
I don't even know, I mean, would we even be able to tell who was originally on it and who wasn't on it?
When they put the sewer in, they'd be able to check the tax.
And then compare it to what it is now and then,
Comparison.
and see what that was. I don't know how you feel about that, Mark.
Yeah, I would just do from here forward. I like the proposal. I respect the proposal of one forward, but we have to have a date. If it happens within that date, it's no different than the system we've been operating under.
Mhm.
Some people's pumps last long, some people's pumps don't last at all.
So one more pump.
No, I would not be in favor of one more pump. I'd be in favor of, let's get a date. That's plenty of opportunity for people to prepare just as much as you have your own private system. And let's just get a date. Let's make it clear and there's also gotta be an expectation of maintenance. It's just
Are you saying,
During the phasing.
during the sunset.
so are you saying, Mark, that, say this year now, because we signed a contract, we signed something in a resolution. Does that say 25% is a homeowner now? Next year it's 50, and then it's 75, and then 100% homeowner?
No, just, I don't wanna be in
Just
the
curious.
business of divvying it up. Let's just get a date, make it clear, simple, and
Okay. Oh, I see what you mean. No sunset.
let's
So like
let's
3
not
Well,
worry.
years from-
sunset for costs.
Sunset for responsibility
Yeah.
replacement.
Yeah.
What's that number?
Yeah.
So like saying 3 years. The maintenance fee reverts to the homeowner. Is that what you're saying?
No,
I would say the maintenance fee is only during the sunset. Because right now we don't give a maintenance fee. My point of the maintenance fee would be to have some surety that it's being maintained properly.
So who's paying the $308?
yeah.
It would be a special charge on the tax bill, it was earlier discussed. At least that was my understanding from council, correct?
I was just throwing, I asked if that had ever been discussed. You know, I thought there would be a savings, but apparently there isn't. I was hoping there would be a savings.
You were advocating that is, because then we could get a contracted number that might be discounted rather
Right.
than just each individual resident's paying for it.
And some of them won't be it won't be as problematic if it's on their tax bill, and they can have a year to escrow for it and things like that, you know, they know that it's coming in December of, you know,
This year.
this year.
So I've got there's maintenance on a tax bill, 3 years, in 3 years, homeowners are responsible for replacement or maintenance of a pump. And, any owners responsible for damaging pump intentionally, it's their responsibility.
Intentionally or not intentionally?
So in that 3 years. That they're maintained, you know, it's being maintained. If they damage the pump, then we would not pay for it, if they intentionally damage.
Not intentionally.
I
Because
don't,
there's a
If
difference.
it's the homeowners, if it was as a result of something,
Yes,
Yeah, because they're gonna be negligent and still their
Negligent.
fault.
yes.
yeah, I don't wanna get into the.
It can
business
be
of-
intentional
Me
or
neither.
negligent, it's
Right.
just our contractor has indicated that it's there. It was something they did, not wear and tear, normal wear and tear.
So then do we have to contract with Demolic again to have him be the arbiter of these things? Yeah.
Well, I believe under the proposal, you would always contract with them, it's just next year, it would be a special charge. That's what I'm hearing, but I'm not putting words, I don't want to put words in the
well,
trustee's mouth, but that's what I heard him, I think, in
I
intent.
don't even think it would be a matter of putting it on this year anyways, because
Right.
we've already budgeted for it.
No, I'm not suggesting it's, the bills are out, the tax bills are
So
out.
for 2025, just like we do garbage, we do that for the current year, we don't do it for the past year, so. The 2025, December bill that comes out 2024 for the. That they will pay either in December, January, and July, they, on there would be their. Their garbage charge and their maintenance charge.
And I'm not trying to complicate it. I think Kathy's done an excellent job of summarizing. We could research why prior council thought you couldn't have it be upon. You know,
Be a what? I'm sorry.
why it could be
Assessment.
couldn't be upon transfer, but
transfer the title.
I would like to find out about that and if it's possible to make that part of it. I really don't get why that couldn't
But
happen.
I think the idea that, what I heard possibly from Mark was that we'd rather see a
Mhm.
drop dead date than say somebody that has been in their house for another 20 years, another person that next month sells their home, and then how do we keep track of it? If I heard you correct, you wanted a line in the sand. whatever that line is.
Right, I don't really, I don't wanna worry about the business of who's occupying the house and getting into all that, because I think it could get messy with certain situations, and that's just an additional cost to the entire community. My focus is on the mechanical piece of equipment and moving forward to the street. I mean, I guess one thing that I see with this fee is everybody that was in the sewer service area under the sanitary was paying, I think the last year was like 250 was the last one?
I think it was $50.
No, what was the
For the-
one that was on the tax bill?
Oh, yeah,
I think I,
depends on your rate, you know.
no, not the rate. I'm talking just to be part of it.
Oh,
Just the part that, I thought it was, because it was $50,000.
It was 60, yeah.
So then I thought it was 50.
it started off at 42, you know, and then went to,
Right, I guess what I'm saying, I can look it up, but
Yeah.
when we became a utility, that
Yes.
fee dropped off everyone's tax bill.
yes,
We couldn't put that on anymore.
Because we could no longer put it on there. I'm a private user, but in the sewer service area, and I was paying the fee,
yeah,
never even having access to sewer.
right.
But, you know, it was a fee I paid, that we had to,
Mhm.
that now has since dropped off your tax bill.
So you're looking at that as like a partial offset then?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could even cap the fee. If, you know, obviously inflation's one thing, I don't wanna keep raising the fee. I think we set a fee for the period of the sunset, and it is what it is. I just think we need to have some clear, you know, something that's gonna put this issue to.
I agree with you, Mark, we
But
need to,
If it was actual costs. You could do actual costs of the.
inspection,
Inspection.
I'd rather just set one fee.
flat fee, like 350,
That way the homeowner, I mean, the homeowner's gotta prepare. Whatever the board says, they gotta prepare for. A potential replacement of this pump may happen the year after they become responsible for it. Or it may happen 20 years later, I don't know, that's individual budgeting choices, how you prepare that, but I think we should at least give them a clear, stable fee that they can prepare for to see on their next. Tax bill.
You want that, Senator?
Do we know?
What's your house number?
Are we talking about if we push a sunset, then those fees won't go on the tax bill until the sunset is over? Is that what we're saying?
no, I think, you know, the extra,
I would
that's go
prefer-
for 24,
I would propose for only the years that the sunset is occurring.
yeah.
Once,
25, 26, 27, if it's a free.
If it's a 2-year. I think it's unfair to start it this year because
Mhm,
it's already been budgeted for, the year's already started, let's just keep it clean.
mhm. I agree,
And then you're also not talking about like a phase-in percentage, it would be 25, 26, 27. It would be the village, and after 27, it would be the homeowner.
But the homeowners would be paying on their taxes for the maintenance. And then that will drop off in 2020.
In-
When they get full response.
But they're still paying for it if it's on their tax bill.
But only for the 3 years. They
Mhm.
pay for the maintenance.
mhm.
We pay for the replacement. If any of the pumps go bad in that 3 years, we pay for the replacement. As long as.
Right, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
And
But
then
then
they pay the maintenance.
After 28, they make.
They
a
pay it
decision if
anyway.
They pay maintenance themselves, or if they pay it every other year for maintenance, or.
Yeah,
It's
That's
up
their
to
own
them
choice.
because now
Thank
it's
you,
their,
sorry.
it's their responsibility.
it's no different than if you have your furnace serviced every year. or do you-
Yeah.
No, we wait until there's a problem.
I know this
thought
isn't gonna be popular. I like the
No.
homeowner one.
Yeah.
I like where if the homeowner changed. That's what I like. I know that may not be the majority, but that's,
Changes from now or from when it was originally?
well, it was,
We'll
for
have
me,
to
it was
figure
when it was from the original, when the system was put in.
Yeah, but so you'd go back and put people on immediately?
What do you mean
If-
put on?
Well, like if-
2025, they would have to pay for their own maintenance and we'd have to pay for.
Oh, I was talking about what Joe was just talking. about.
Right, it wouldn't be this year, but next year,
If you bought your house 5 years ago.
right?
You'd be on, you're responsible for it yourself. Maintenance and replacement. of them.
So, all right, just to be clear, you're saying anybody of those, I think it's 38, that were the original pump, or what about?
No, the original
homeowner.
homeowner.
Owner.
Original owner.
So-
That's the one I liked.
So if they've sold and they've had 3 pumps replaced since then, they're today,
It's
the
on
day
them.
after the resolution, it's on them.
Mhm.
I would advocate this for like next year,
For 2025, because we already budgeted. for this.
right? I would have advocated next year that starting. But I just, that's what I wanted back in 19, to be honest with you, but. It's not that I'm against other ways to sunset it, but I want to give time to.
Yeah. Well, I guess not to call you out on the spot, what's the rationale behind the original homeowner versus any homeowner?
The agreement was promised to the original homeowner.
Mhm.
Do we have any idea how many of those 38 houses were sold in that time frame?
Pretty sure if there's a 20-year-old owner in the house, though, it's been
It's
changed.
gonna be quite a few, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking, when was this put in?
About
Everybody's
90.
different. There was different dates on the pump installations.
The original,
The original.
depending on when. the house is.
I mean, as you can imagine, the responsibleness to preserve records from back then is not as technologically sound as it is today, so.
But we would know who the original homeowner was, right? That's what you had said, right, Kathy?
I think we should be able to find that from tax.
Or even, I mean,
Looking at the county, we should
No,
get it from the county, not for us.
I know when I pull up the tax bills, it doesn't go back that far. So unless you can go in and inspect it, find out.
But yeah, but
And
they
for
have to
their
preserve the
waste issue,
tax.
Yeah,
Well, would it say on the tax bills who the owner was though,
sure,
Sure.
from back then?
sure.
Sure, and all of that, I mean, I could pull out the book from 18 whatever, and it says person's name, the person's address, and the $2.50 they paid for their property tax.
I could go either way, actually.
And if we keep going either way, we're gonna,
Well, I don't think this is getting decided tonight anyway.
no, I don't think so either.
And quite frankly, I don't think it should be, but
Yeah,
Like, I guess, since it's not getting decided tonight, could we have a scope of impact for both options?
Yeah.
What does that
Yeah.
look like?
Impact of workload to get it done, and to keep track of it throughout the years, or workload? What the work,
Well-
how it impacts the property owner for the two different options?
is this something we send back to the utility committee or something we want to just do at the board level? I think the only,
I don't think you're gonna get any different
Mm-mm.
opinions from the committee.
well, we got to establish what we're doing first, though.
Mhm.
I'm okay doing it here. We're gonna have a kick at the can either way,
Well, and at the end of the day, we're the 5 that are gonna
right?
be the unfavorable ones to somebody. I
This-
mean, I don't even know what the impact of original homeowners on those 38 months is gonna be.
But I don't know.
I mean, if we're talking like
So,
2 original homeowners, well, now we got 36 upset people. Plus all the people that are outside the sewer
I think
service
if
area,
if we're sunsetting and we have 38, no matter what.
but we're also gonna create outside people that are not gonna be favorable to it either. I mean, 10,000, however many. I think the people outside the sanitary service area are thinking, well, what do I get?
I don't think they know.
I'm just saying.
I think you know, but I think most of them have no idea.
You're
There's
probably
400
right,
and
you're
there's
probably right,
400
but
and
when you,
some.
when you lay it out to somebody, and I mean, obviously. We've been discussing this on a committee level for weeks and weeks and weeks and workshop after workshop after workshop. We have obviously something happened where people are now getting involved.
Well, they know.
Right, but I don't know why, I mean, it's arbitrary at this point, but. This decision is not gonna be favorable to everybody and.
Well, no, it's not, but I think we need to take everything into consideration and make it fair. That's what I think. I think we just need to think about the whole thing. I live outside the sanitary district. I have a septic and I think that doing a phase-in or something along that line is the right thing to do, honestly. Or something along that line, whether it's Joe's proposal or something else.
I live on a county road and still pay for roads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Twice.
still pay for schools, no kids in school.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, and
Yeah,
that was
it's a
something that was argued back in the day. Was, are you doing it as a community, you're doing it individual, and it's. We can go back and forth on that. It was argued, well, the 400 people that are in the sanitary sewer district, if they actually knew what they're paying for, they'd be upset about it, because
Yes, they would.
nobody pays attention until it affects them.
No,
That's just
True.
how it is. There's nobody in this room tonight if it doesn't affect them. The next time this is brought up, there's gonna be a lot of people here. Because it affects them. But the people that it doesn't affect aren't gonna know about it. They're not gonna get 400 people here. You're just not. Cause they're not, most of them aren't gonna care. But the grinder pump, because it's a lot of money, it affects them.
Mhm. Yeah, I get that.
So, I'll check our original homeowners. And get us a number of, that are left, probably ones that are. not-
Only if that's what the other people on the board want. I mean, that's my,
I'll come up with a way
I think
to
it's a-
keep track of, in how we're gonna keep track of it. You know,
Well-
the staff will kind of try to figure out how we're gonna keep track of
Let-
it.
let's,
what's moving forward.
so I said that, but I need to know if other people are even want, because if I'm the only one, there's no point in putting people to work to do this.
I can't say that I'm on your side, but if presented with the information, why not hear it?
Sure. I'm okay with it. I just want to make sure. I don't want to just be making a lot of noise and I'm the only one making noise.
I
Well,
like-
we don't know what we don't know, like, we don't know what it could
Sure.
be 36 or it could be
Yeah.
5, who knows?
Yeah,
So I think we need to know.
okay. I would like to know more information.
Becky?
I would like to know.
And back at the next, the board meeting, do we want to send anything to the rest of the homeowners?
I'm fairly certain they're gonna know pretty quick.
But.
There's probably an email train and a neighbor train that's gonna, I don't know that we're gonna need to.
But my question is, do we want it to come through a neighbor or do we want a notice to come through? us?
Oh.
That's all.
I mean, do we know who those 38?
Well,
We know who the 38 properties are.
Well, here's the thing is, do you notice 38 or you notice 400?
But do we notice the 38 with grinders ones in the next quarterly bill?
I think you notice everybody then. You're gonna notice 38, you gotta notice everybody. It's, we're arguing both sides of the fence here.
Mhm.
So you either notice everybody or you notice nobody. In my opinion.
well, so is that amount that you pay on your tax bill, does that include? That would include the amount for that's been budgeted for the grinder pump maintenance, right?
You talking to me personally?
Yes.
No, used to.
Used to.
When it
Well,
became,
okay,
when it became a
yeah,
utility, nobody paid that fee.
right. But that just happened.
Yeah, for
We'll give
23
the
and
village.
24.
Yeah, yeah. But everybody in the district pays for grinding pumps. Everybody does.
It was done collectively.
Mhm,
The
Okay,
2019 board and previous,
mhm.
the 19 board voted to put them over to the residents, and then they changed their mind and went the other way.
Yeah.
So, and that's what happened.
okay.
Right, come back with something.
That'd be great.
And then,
I mean, I guess not to speak with right now, but I empower if somebody's got a creative idea that we're missing here. You know, what, our phone numbers are on the website, or you can come in here and.
You're bad, and I hate to say this, but you're, because of, making up our mind, but your idea is not bad either. It could go either way.
Well, my wife said. On other things. No, you're never gonna, we're never gonna please every
No,
party, because everybody's got a different platform to have an opinion.
and point of view.
Okay. So this is gonna get brought back at the next board meeting.
Really important.
Okay. So we are gonna go into closed session next, but I'm gonna give everybody an opportunity. We're going into closed session, so everybody's gonna have to go, but we're gonna take a short recess right before we do that. 'Cause I drank too much Mountain Dew. Well, just 5-minute recess.
Am I excused?
Sure, we don't need it. for anything. Right, item 10, closed session. Pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, parent 1, parent G, for the purposes of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, more specifically regarding the Hegman lawsuit. And pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent C, for the purpose of considering employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, more specifically regarding the DPW laborer. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I make a motion to go into closed session.
I second.
Motion made and seconded, roll call vote, please.
Yes, yes.
Trustee Quinn,
Aye.
trustee Beal,
Aye.
trustee Moonen,
Aye.
trustee Plotecker,
Aye.
and President Osterman.
Aye, we are in closed session at 8:43.
Can we go?
Hang on.
Hold it.